It's Betting Weekly Live, Monday the 9th of September, and we're back for another week of action. And making his live show debut is professional gambler Neil Channing. Neil, it's great to be back working with you. I hope you had a great weekend.
I did have a good weekend, actually. I'm quite excited. I had a zillion bets on the NFL this weekend. I feel like I'm not really one of these people that sort of says, oh, you should get into it gently on week one. I think you should throw yourself straight in. Actually, a friend of mine sent me a message and said in the match between Tampa Bay and Washington, Washington have a rookie quarterback, a fellow called Jaden Daniels. And he said to me, we should be under his passing yards because the humidity is going to make it really sort of sweaty for him. And that might be bad. So he said to me, how much did you get on? And I said, enough to make it sweaty for me.
Yeah, the NFL's back. I was betting on it myself yesterday, actually. Just about broke even. And we're going to be, the big talking point on the show today with Neil on the show is New York Jets at San Francisco 49ers for Monday Night Football. So we're going to have a breakdown on that game.
It's funny, isn't it? The Jets. The Jets is the big game.
I know. Yeah, so it was like the Lions last night.
Jets.
I couldn't believe it. Like the Lions on primetime first week, they've been terrible for years. In my
game time
I've been watching it, but a little bit of a breakdown on that. Looking back maybe over the weekend with NFL as well, with some notable wages on the sports book, and then later on, I've got a couple of the Nations League bet for us from the soccer. An interesting little story about Kosovo to come, but New York Jets then at San Francisco 49ers. This is the last match of the NFL round. And the Jets on the money line plus 175, San Francisco 49ers minus 215. Point spread that's actually changed a little bit now. Minus 110 for the minus 4 on the 49ers, and the Jets you can get on plus 4 points. Over underline is 43 and a half. There's actually been some money for the under here. We're now at 43 line at minus 109. So, this feels to me, the big story is obviously Aaron Rodgers. I think he only played, 4 plays last year, 4 snaps or something like that. And then he got injured for the season, goes to the West Coast here with the Jets. Both teams, I've seen some people suggest, they certainly are Super Bowl contenders. How do you see this week one matchup going in California?
Well, one thing to say about yesterday's games is that the totals were only 5 of the 13 games went over. And I think there is a general feeling that in the first week of the season, teams take a bit of a while to gel, particularly on offense. And I think, the totals that the bookmakers were pinning up were lower than the average points in an NFL game. So obviously the market has factored that into an extent, but despite that, only 5 of the 13 games went over. My initial reaction was if you put a gun to my head and said, you got a free bet in this game, I could only really, on a handicap or total points, I could only really consider an unders bet, I think, of the sort of 4 options on the main market. So maybe kind of under 43 and a half might just appeal to me. But I again, because as you said, we got a quarter. What's this? Their 5th quarterback in the last 3 years. It's kind of mad, isn't it? And it's not like they've got a sort of dynamic duo where there's a recognized receiver or anything like that. I just feel like it'll take a while for things to drop into place for the Jets, really.
Yeah, I can tell you now, it's quite split actually with the money with Bet Rivers here on the spread. 51% of the money on the Jets, 52% of the tickets on the 49ers. So it's generally 50-50 down the middle. Same with the over-under, really. 60% of the tickets are on the over, which is quite low actually for the over because the overs are more popular to bet on. It's just the way it is. The biggest bet at the minute that I've got on the sheet is about $10,000. 49ers plus 4.5. That's at minus 312 though, so kind of an ultra safe line. $5,600 bet on the Jets on the money line at plus 175 is interesting. Biggest player prop so far is $1,700 on Deebo Samuel anytime touchdown.
Oh, really? That's interesting.
Well, the first, some stats here from the week one, which really stood out.
I did ask a good friend of mine who's very good on the player stuff, and I said, if you had a bet tonight, he said, well, I wasn't really going to have a bet, but he said, there's one that's kind of interesting. And he said he quite likes Garrett Wilson, wide receiver, to potentially, maybe not tonight, but generally to become a target, really. He said, really, there's not much competition in the receiving because Mike Williams is coming back from a ankle cruciate ligament thing. And the other people are household names only in their own household. Wilson, just 7 total touchdowns since entering the league in 2021. But you've got to factor in the quality of quarterback that he was being thrown the ball by. Possibly, obviously, probably you can exclude Flacco from knocking the quarterbacks, but he didn't have great service. And he thought possibly, that could be a rapport that could get together. So I was looking at that. I don't know what price Bet Rivers are. Wilson to score any time. So about 8-5 would be a fair price, probably.
I'll have a look at the anytime scorer touchdown soon, but Bet Rivers have tons of different receiving lines, yard lines, over under for Wilson. You can go as low as 44.5 at minus 420. The main line is around 69.5. If you wanted over 69.5 receiving yards for Garrett Wilson, that would be at minus 117. In terms of anytime touchdown scorer, I will find it very soon. You might have to just talk for a bit here, Neil, while I find it.
The only thing I would say is I don't always like to rush to bet, actually to score a touchdown in games where I maybe don't fancy too many points. You're kind of betting against yourself. If I fancy a game to go overs, I'm much more likely to look at a couple of players as anytime touchdown scorers. But I think I might end up doing that, but that might just push me towards possibly just playing over his receiving yards.
Plus 117 anytime scorer, which
that might be a bit shorter than I was hoping for, actually. Yeah,
I think so.
Sorry, Bet Rivers. You're being a bit stingy there on me.
It was an interesting first week so far with the stats. I was looking, and one that really stood out to me was only 2 quarterbacks have thrown over 300 yards. That's Matt Stafford last night,
was amazing.
And Tua. Yeah. That's pretty unusual. Although, anyone who watched the Betting Weekly Dojo last week, that's a great show with you and Nigel, by the way. Plug in for that. Bless. I think there's going to be the next episode's going to be released today, I do believe. You did say, watch out in the first few weeks. The points, the offenses are not always clicking. So maybe that could be something here. Both quarterback lines here for the.
I'm touched you were watching, Steve. That's very sweet of you. I thought I was going to have to slightly repeat that point, but I now I know that you're keeping on top of it. That's very good.
You've got to be sharp.
Another thought on that is in terms of I was just looking at this on rookie quarterbacks. Rookie quarterbacks, I think generally they're a little bit overrated on week one. Because they get a sort of friendly preseason where, they're given a nice chance to play a bit in the preseason, and the market tends to think, oh, look, they looked quite good in the preseason. But the whole intensity and the speed of the game is completely different. That was partly why we played that Jaden Daniels one. But I sort of thought that was quite a sort of interesting angle. It is a bit, it's great, actually. I am finding myself getting really back into the NFL quite quickly. And I coming into the season, I wasn't massively enthusiastic, but I was thinking much more about my age and all these, watching it from the UK. And now there's games on Friday nights and Thursday nights and Saturday nights. It feels like every night of the week you've got to be up until 3:30 a.m. It's going to kill me probably, but I don't know. What a way to go!
So some notable weekend winners and losers on the NFL at Bet Rivers. 73,000 was placed on the Patriots live on the money line at minus 5,000 against the Bengals. That was a big shock result. Nearly $40,000 on the Dolphins minus 2.5 at minus 139 against the Jaguars. That was a really good second half from the Dolphins there. The Panthers plus 5.5, $25,000 down the drain there. They were terrible, weren't they, against the Saints? They absolutely stunk the place out. And same bet on the Commanders plus 5.5 against the Buccaneers. That one lost. Here's a really interesting bet here, Neil, before I finish here. Some notable long odds winners, which was sent to me on an email from one of our traders today. I love this one. Lions first half, tie second half, 40-1 winner. I mean, that's a fantastic winner, isn't it?
That is a great
I've got to say. And some great first touchdown score winners as well, at nearly 20-1 on both of these. Alec Pierce in the Colts-Texans game and Geno Smith for the Seahawks. So, some good winners.
Somebody within the industry told me that they took, at their book, they took more bets on the player this was in the opening night game, the Chiefs against the Ravens. They took more bets on the player to score the first touchdown than they did on the total and spread in the game.
Really? That's incredible.
I mean, which is interesting, isn't it? Because people sort of say that the if I'm going to say a long word, the Europeanization of American sports betting, with some European firms joining the US market, is changing the way things are. It used to be that American pros would talk a lot about having 4-figure bets on sides and totals. And I think actually, same game parlays and that kind of thing. People like to win a lot for a little, don't they? They like to bet $10 and have a chance to win 100, or even 1,000. It's if you want to, it's hard work, isn't it? If you want to have if you just want to bet singles and you want to bet on 10 different games and just have a straight bet, you've got to lay out a lot of money, and the chances are you'll go 5-5 or 4-6 or 6-4, and you won't really win very much or lose very much. It won't be very interesting. People like a chance to win a bit of money. I think that trend will continue. It's certainly happened over this side of the water that, people in soccer, more and more of the action is on parlays. It's on same game parlays. It's in running betting. And I think those changes will have to come in the US.
There's one, before we move on a little bit, there's a player I want to talk about for tonight's game, and that is New York Jets running back, Breece Hall. Now, I'm actually in a fantasy league, a competitive one with some friends, and I had the second pick in the draft, and I picked Breece Hall. The first pick, someone actually picked Josh Allen. So I picked Breece Hall. I was torn between Hall and McCaffrey, actually. Didn't know who to pick for the season. But I went with the New York Jets running back. Now, his actual rushing line tonight is potentially generous. It's up and around the the rushing and receiving yards, you can get him here at 96.5 because he's going to be involved, obviously, in the passing game as well. Do you expect the Jets to have much success against the 49ers here? They've got a reputation. The Niners have
asked me this question before.
I think it's one of them where
it's not about.
Are they more likely to run on? Do you think they're more likely to get running success, or is Rodgers more likely to get passing success? Is basically the question.
I wouldn't have a strong view on it. I haven't done the homework, Steve.
No.
I don't like to give you just off the top. I'm quite methodical, If I have a betting opinion, I like it to be backed up by an hour with a pen and paper.
But if you had to have a lean on the game, then you said it's a tough one.
I'm probably going to bet the under. I know that's a bit boring. People say, "Oh, what a boring git." You're just betting the under in the game. I'm sorry about that. I'll have matchsticks keeping my eyes open. And praying for no touchdowns. I did. I saw talking about the passing. I did write down that earlier. The average amount of passing yards on Sunday afternoon. What do you reckon per quarterback?
It would have been about 230.
185.
Oh, wow, as low as that.
That's quite low, isn't it, really? Now, the normal average on a Sunday afternoon would be about 270.
Yeah, I think
that's exceptionally
Chicago Bears,
low.
Chicago Bears rookie quarterback won the game with 87 passing yards or something like that, I think. And the Bears, by the way,
the first team in NFL history to win a game in which they trailed by at least 17 and had fewer than 150 total yards. Incredible.
I mean, that was rather remarkable. At the minute, the Bears are the biggest Super Bowl liability for Bet Rivers, by the way.
I think it was the last 67 times that a team has been trailing by 17, they've only covered the spread once.
It was. I mean, that's just
that's a bad beat. That's a bad.
If you had a
beat,
ticket on the Titans yesterday, I think you can consider yourself.
I think it
very
is
lucky.
a bad beat. Yeah, no, definitely. The other one, of course, I'll quickly. I don't know whether you want to move on to soccer, but the survivor pools was quite interesting. I don't know whether you talk about your fantasy stuff. A lot of people involved in survivor pools at the start of the season. I'm always in one every year. You pick a team each week. They just have to win. It doesn't matter what the spread is, but you can only use that team once.
Who did you pick?
Well, I mean, you just had to pick the Bengals, didn't you? Because they were sort of 8-point favorites. I think the next biggest favorite was 4.5. It felt to me like you had to pick it. The Circa, which is now the biggest survivor pool in the world, they had 14,000. I'm trying to remember, maybe something like 14,460 entrants, guaranteed a £10 million prize. There's $1,000 to enter. Apparently, we've been told 34% of people picked Cincinnati, and they went out on week one. I don't know whether they feel better or worse than the 45 people who paid $1,000 and then forgot to name a team that they wanted. They went out week one as well. How rich do you have to be? That wasn't you, was it, Steve?
No, I'm not actually in a survivor pool this year.
Imagine that. You pay $1,000 to enter a tournament and then you can't even be bothered to submit a team on the first week. Maybe, I mean, possibly that's like one person that had 45 entries and just dozed off.
It's just sheer laziness, isn't it?
It's just very lazy. I mean, I would have picked the Bengals if I was in one. I'm in a survivor pool and I've been in it for years. And what they do in that is if you forget to submit, you just get the biggest favorite of the week automatic pick. So, that's fair enough. That saves you from having to, you can be lazy. Some weeks I think, well, I'm just going for the biggest favorite anyway. So I don't even bother submitting. But not like that in that Circa one. You're brutal. You're just out. Done your money.
Done. Absolutely done, and I don't blame him actually for that. We're going to talk a bit of soccer in a minute, but before we move on, the three biggest Super Bowl liabilities for Bet Rivers: Chicago Bears, Pittsburgh Steelers, New York Jets. Are Bet Rivers going to be in trouble? Do you think with that? What do you think about those three teams?
First of all, I would say that Bet Rivers are definitely not going to be in trouble. The second thing I would say is that the futures book will look tiny. By the time the Super Bowl comes around, the amount of bets taken on the day of the Super Bowl will dwarf whatever is in the futures book. Thirdly, I'm amazed that Kansas is not one of the three. Wouldn't you think? I would have thought.
Yeah, you would.
A dynasty team, favorites, very popular, very public team, fabulous quarterback, Taylor Swift. I mean, what's not to like? How can they not be one of the three? I'm surprised. What were the three again? The Jets?
We've got the Jets, the Steelers, and the Bears.
I mean, the Steelers are the interesting one, I suppose, of the three. I think they
very
might
good
be
defense,
sort of interesting, especially probably in a weak division as well, where the other teams have not had a stellar start. But yeah, no, interesting.
It's very interesting. See how it goes, but. Yeah, let's see how it goes Monday Night Football. Let's hope for not many points. It does feel like it could be quite a tight game there in the opener. I had a question here about the Kosovo. I did tease Kosovo, didn't I? Dave Clark. Now, this match kicks off. Obviously, Cyprus against Kosovo, right, in the UEFA Nations League. Now,
sorry, I hate that. I definitely don't want to be racist at all, but if you heard that there was a game that was a bit dodgy today or something, or it was a suspicious betting pattern, Kosovo against Cyprus, it doesn't sound like in a low-key tournament that nobody's really that bothered about. I mean, I wouldn't have maximum limits on this one.
it does kind of sound a little bit dodgy. I mean, also because you probably can't trust the players in terms of the quality levels. And Cyprus, I have a saying actually in betting, Neil. Bad things happen when you bet on bad teams. And,
well, that's definitely true.
And I'm kind of almost going against my own rules here because Cyprus are not a team. They're not a good team. They're a bad team. But I think it's a favourable spot for them. And they just interest me slightly on the draw double chance around even money because Kosovo have there's 3 players, Edon Zagrova, Aro Muric, and Florent Mazilia, have been sent home from the squad. 3 regular starters.
Really?
Starting goalkeeper, probably their best right winger. Well, the rumour was that they were basically out late on the weekend in a nightclub in Kosovo. They weren't celebrating a win. They lost 3-0 at home to Romania. They're debating the fact they're not happy about being sent home, but it sounds like there's a bit of chaos going on in the Kosovo camp. And I just think they can be taken on here. Cyprus actually had a win against...
Professional sports people are amazing, aren't they? Don't forget Tyreek Hill managed to get, what was it, an 80-yard TD reception late in the game yesterday after a hectic day.
He did. And, I'm actually, the Cyprus are actually plus 320 on the money line. And now they're not a team you can trust with a lot of your money, Neil. But I do think the draw double chance on Cyprus. They've just had a win against Lithuania, against this Kosovo team who are maybe a little bit under fire here, a bit under pressure. They've obviously not got 3 starters. They would interest me. There's better bets.
I like it. You've convinced me. You've made a decent case. You've made a decent case.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, I've my favourite bet for the day in the Nations League though is Romania. Romania on a -1.5 handicap against Lithuania.
How come?
They're just a big golfing class between the 2 teams. Neil, Lithuania are one of the poorest teams in European soccer, basically. Romania should not be in this division they're in. They're much better. We saw them at the Euro Championships. They performed quite well, made the last 16. Had a 3-0 win against Kosovo, and they were the dog in that game, about plus 200. Now, the -1 Asian handicap is one of my least favourite to take in soccer because... how can I say it? It's all or nothing. I don't like all or nothing bets. I like a push on side or a half win or a half loss. It's all or nothing.
I used to be a subscriber to this idea that you could look at the rankings for the teams and relate that. How do you assess? It's quite hard to assess these international teams that don't play each other very often when there is a big golfing class. Do you use a kind of rating system, or do you look at the world rankings, or how do you go about sort of working out how much better one is than the other?
I think it comes out of probably just 20 years of watching these teams, and I look through the card, and I just know what would stand. Something usually stands out. It just doesn't feel right. Okay, you might look at something and think, "Wow, that is way too big a price on them," or they're too short. And then what I will do is I will look into the fixture in detail a bit more, see what the injury situation is, what the form is. With some of these teams, you can't always find the information you need because we're talking, some minnows here where it's really difficult. I don't really have a contact in Lithuania.
Well, it's also such small sample sizes, isn't it? I mean, you can look and see like the last 5 games they played, but that stretches over a year.
Yeah, of course it does. It is tricky, but for me, Romania there is at least one big golfing class between them. What I don't like about this handicap in general is they can win the game, but I can lose my bet. I hate that. Yeah. If it's money line, they go down with me. Do you know where I'm coming from, Neil? So it is one of my least favorite handicaps in soccer, but I just think they're going to win quite convincingly here, Romania. The other game, which I'm going to have to talk about, big one, France against Belgium, is the top match on the card in the Nations League tonight. France -127 favourites. I wouldn't be having them as a jolly here at this sort of price. They looked awful against Italy on Friday, I must say. It's very worrying. I don't really think France are in a good rhythm right now, a good mindset. I think Nigel Seeley mentioned this on one of the comments on the last show. A lot of the big players are not quite... Are they really focused on this international window? They've had a tough summer in the Euros, and some of the top players have not really performed yet. I mean, Haaland didn't even score against Kazakhstan for Norway. I think Belgium can come here and get something, but I wouldn't trust Belgium. They have a really bad record against France. It's a mental issue. So if I was to take something, I would be looking at the a bit of a boring bet. This actually, both teams score yes at -150.
Mm-hmm.
I don't trust.
I don't mean to overly plug the dojo because we're doing perfectly all right on our own. But I'll come on your show and mention it. Nigel and I were having a talk this morning in the episode that you can rush to look at later today. And I don't know what you think about this. Like in NFL betting, a lot of times people will talk about schedule and they'll talk about sandwich games. They'll talk about teams coming up to their bye week, teams coming off a bye, those kind of things. Now, in soccer betting, obviously, you get these international breaks quite often. Are you thinking about, when you're thinking about the international break, are you thinking, I notice you're talking there about some of these players not really being up for it. These, there's not the most prestigious international break. It's not like World Cup qualifiers or Euro qualifiers. Are you thinking about this kind of sort of mental stuff in terms of the way they're going to play in these international matches, or do you spend your time thinking about how it's going to affect their next domestic game, people coming back to play in the Premier or in Italy or in Spain, and how it's going to affect them in those bigger leagues?
I think it's both. I mean, for example, there was an international window in about March or April before the Euro tournament, and I think any player being involved in that window just wouldn't want to get injured because they've got a huge run of fixtures domestically and then a massive tournament at the end of it. So it's like, are they really wanting to get stuck in things like that? And
does that point up obvious teams to avoid in the internationals then?
Yeah, it will do. And in terms of club football, domestic football, I actually have I like to bet on really good teams just before an international break. It's a bit like betting on an NFL team before their bye week. I think the focus is always often there a lot more because they know they're not going to be playing for about 2 weeks, sometimes 2.5 weeks. I just think the best teams with the best mentalities, with the clutch mentalities, just tend to perform when that happens. Now, after a break, it's a lot different. That's always a good time sometimes, depending on how many players have been away, to actually bet against the big dogs, the big favourites, should I say. This coming up weekend, you might want to be looking to betting against the likes of Barcelona, Real Madrid, even Manchester City. Again, you've got to look.
Who are the teams in the Premier that just don't really have too many players that will be busy during this international break that are going to be nice and fresh next week?
Probably not that many, because what you got to remember, Neil,
everyone's got someone that's playing in some country or another.
Yeah, he's got under 21s, under 19s. Even the talented kids are playing. So I mean, if I had to pick, last year I would have said someone like Luton Town. This season, I'll have to have a look at that. Maybe Ipswich, someone like that could be a team. I'll have to look at that in detail. But there'll be a team that surprises you and like, wow, they only got 2 or 3. Everton maybe could be one along those lines. Good day to Kushal and Ray, Duncan as well. Duncan thinks Wales are a good bet tonight against. I think I look at who they've actually got. Let me just put the thing back.
He's called Wales, Duncan Evans. Of course, he thinks Wales are a good bet.
Montenegro.
Duncan sounds like the most Welsh person I've ever heard of.
Of course, Craig Bellamy's now in charge of them, a disciple of
I'd forgotten
Vincent
that.
Kompany.
Yes, of course.
So
good luck to you, Duncan, with that one.
They played quite some decent football, I think, against Turkey on Friday night. I didn't see the game, I must say. Kushal did make a very good point there about that Belgium do play better in the Nations League friendlies. In the less pressurized games, Belgium, a really talented squad.
Belgium are often, they're a bit of a wise guy team, aren't they? Everybody likes to say, I fancy Belgium. People often talk about them as kind of dark horses in the big competitions. They always seem to disappoint.
They do. I think when the pressure's really on, they do let you down. So for me, the best bet would be in the soccer would be Romania -1.5. I do like France, Belgium, both teams score yes, -150. You can maybe even add that to a parlay. For those who are tempted, by the way, Erling Braut Haaland is +112 to score any time for Norway today against Austria. I'm not saying I'm recommending it, but it's not often you get Haaland at +112 to score a goal against a team of, say, Austria's caliber. They're not bad, but they're not amazing either. So I'll throw that one out there to the masses.
I
Ray,
might. From what you've said, I'm thinking maybe just to throw a friendly bet or two at 3-0, 4-0 Romania.
Yeah, Lithuania are not a good team, Neil, at all. But if you had to have a best bet NFL, would it be that under? Or
I think it would have to be, just for now. But I mean, we're only looking at one game. Looking at the way the game started yesterday, and that quarterback stat was pretty amazing on the yardage. They're going to take a while to gel, aren't they? These Jets. I like under 43.5.
Well, that concludes today's show. You are actually back on Friday, Neil, on Betting Weekly Live with Dan Roebuck. So we look forward to that. We've got Will White on tomorrow.
To it now you've told me. I better. I'm glad you mentioned it.
And we've got the dojo. A big plug in here for the dojo. It's been a great weekly show with yourself and Nigel Seeley. Captivating viewing, I find it. I've actually had it on my big screen.
We were pretty. I hate to be. We were a bit quite chuffed with ourselves after today's. We both went. Yeah, I think that was a really good one. So I don't know. Probably everyone will hate it now.
Shakespeare, good to see you. He comes in with his best bet of the day in the MLB. Toronto Blue Jays against New York Mets. Under 9 runs, -110. That's his bet of the day in the MLB. Great to see you, Shakespeare. And it's great to see you, Neil, as well. And we look forward to more content from yourself. Tomorrow, Will White, professional gambler Will White, is with Dan Roebuck. So I hope to catch you then. I'll be back on Wednesday with Daniele Fisichella. So take care, everyone. Stay safe and remember to gamble responsibly. Goodbye.